Welcome back. We are going to attempt to mount our Luepold scope to our Christensen Arms rifle. Complete newbie, never done this before, watched one YouTube video, and we're going to see what we can do. So we're going to be mounting the Luepold backcountry cross slot one-piece rail to the rifle first, and then we'll mount the rings and then the scope. Hopefully we have the right size pieces for this. First things first, we are going to put a little bit of the blue Loctite on the back side of these screws. Okay. Okay, we got it just snugged. Gonna wipe off some excess Loctite that dribbled through. Check the other side. Looks pretty good. And now we're gonna put a little more torque onto these. Get these snug, make sure they're all good and snug. And then tighten them down. And the rail will be on, relatively easy. I think our local gun shop charges $50 to mount a scope. I know Sportsman's, you can do like the 1-year gun package for like 40 bucks. And then you get like gun cleanings and things like that. But I can clean my gun and it takes me 25 minutes to drive there. You gotta wait for 20 minutes while you're there and 25 minutes to drive back. That's an hour and 10 minutes of my day. Could clean this thing in 15 minutes, probably do a little bit better job. And at least you know what quality of job was done if you're doing it yourself. Heck, sometimes if I rush it, whatever, I know I didn't do it. I did a crappy job. At least I knew I did a crappy job. So this is on. We're gonna give them all, we don't have a torque wrench. Again, this is no tools. We're using an end table as a workbench. Get those nice and snug. I like to go back and forth to each one. Just tighten them up real good. The good news is they give you this real crappy wrench, so you can't tighten it up probably over tight. Okay. And our rail is on. So next we have the Luepold backcountry cross slot rings for a 30mm scope housing, which is what we got. And ours are, we bought the medium ones at 0.99 inches of clearance. I didn't think we could get away with the low versions, and I didn't want to go high. You want your scope as close to the rifle as you can get, so that when you're resting your cheek on the stock, it lines up with your eye and you're not trying to lift your head up to get to that scope, to look down that scope. So again, we're gonna open these carefully in case they're the wrong size. Okay, set rings and tops. One thing that's going to be difficult is we're going to need to set this rifle up. We might have to move somewhere to do that. And our screws. Okay. Put that right like that. Now we can work. We're just going to pick a spot for these right out of the gate. Just slap them on somewhere to get started. Okay. Now this could be the challenging part. Now I have a gun vise. Is where we're gonna mount this scope. So first off, this one has to come a lot closer. Okay, at least we're in now. Okay. So now we need to figure out where we want to position the scope for our eye relief. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find out where it's comfortable to have this scope shouldered. I'm gonna close my eyes. I'm gonna shoulder the rifle, and I'm going to put my face on the stock, and then I'm gonna open my eye. And if that scope doesn't line up perfectly to my eye with the relief, if I have to move my head back or forward, etc., then I'm going to reposition the scope within those rings, so that when I open my eyes where I'm comfortable and I open my eye, the scope is absolutely perfect with the eye relief. You might have to get creative on how we do this. Oh. And honestly, it was pretty good right where it was at. All right, I'm just going to move it slightly forward. I want to move this ring back just a touch, this base. What we learned is I want these where they're at right now. The scope's close. We'll fine tune that here in a second. And so I want to tighten these down so they stop moving on me. So I'm just going to get them snug. And then I'm going to push them slightly forward as I tighten them down, because you can see they have some play in them. And then I'm just going to push it forward and tighten it down. again, we're gonna just push this forward and then tighten it down. All right, so we're gonna lay this rifle on the side, get these snug, nice and tight. Nice and tight. And now we're gonna go back to the scope and work on getting it where we want it, and then positioned level with the rifle, looking down, and then we'll pop the screws in. So I need to move my head back a little, so we're gonna move the scope slightly forward. Okay, and we're gonna try again. Closing our eyes. Comfortable, open. Just back just a touch more. We want to be very careful that these rings are not touching any of our components here. So you don't want this ring touching this housing or even close to that bevel, and then the bevel up here. Now we're going to check. I hope the Amazon driver out the window doesn't see me pointing a gun at my yard, not at them. Okay, I like that. We're gonna go ahead, put our housing on top and on top. Taking that CDS thing off. We're going to drop some screws in. Pick up the two we dropped on the floor. Set those in. Find our wrench over here. Just get these started. All right, now we want to level the scope in the housing so that everything is lined up. That looks pretty good. Pretty level. I think we're pretty good. So we're going to snug these down. Again, making sure there's a gap between everything. These ones you definitely want to go back and forth. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a tight ring on one side and a gap on the other. So you don't want to tighten one down and one of these four all the way down and then move your way around. You want to kind of give each one some love, work your way around so that you have a consistent gap between the two left and right side of your ring. So the one thing I don't love is how big that gap is between the scope and the rifle. I think I could have gotten away with low rings, and we may do that, just that. That way, my head can be shouldered lower and I don't have to lift my head up like this. So I think that's what we're gonna do. So I think we're gonna take these rings off. I know we did all that work, and we're gonna exchange them for some low, these right here, some lower profile rings in the same size. Because I don't love the gap right here we've got going on. I want to get this scope closer to the rifle. So let's go ahead and pop these back off, and then we'll make a trip to Sportsman's Warehouse and we'll exchange these rings out for some that are going to work a little bit better for us.
All right, so we are back. We've got the new rings installed. They're 1/10 of an inch lower than the medium rings. And as you can see, we've got the scope back on, back to where we had it originally with the old rings. It's a little bit tighter here. The only way to bring it down more would be to do a direct mount where the rings directly mount to where this rail is. But I like having this rail and ring situation so that I can move the scope, pop the scope off, whatever, if need be, real easy without having to take these off of the mounted right directly to the rifle. So we were just going to make sure we've got it level without having obviously a gun vise and scope level. I think it's really close, if not perfect. So we're just going to snug these down. We got them pretty good. Make sure these are tight. Add the battery into the fire dot complex. And then we are good to go. We have mounted a scope to a rifle. No fancy tools, no fancy presses, no levels, no gauges, no nothing. 20 minutes in your house, in a room, you can mount your scope. Is it perfectly level? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. We could probably fudge with it for another couple minutes. And we may do some minor adjustments when we get out to the range, get this thing level and stuff like that. But should you pay somebody $50 to mount your own scope? I'd say not. You can do it minimal tools pretty quickly. It's very easy. And then you know what was done, how everything was handled, and whatnot. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoy this rifle. We're going to get it cleaned up. We're going to run the rag on it, clean the barrel, and then hopefully we can hit the range with it here in the next couple weeks. Thanks for watching, everybody.